We're going to get started in about 2 minutes. Please remember to turn off your phones and keep your masks on in the auditorium. Let's get started. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Human Rights Council-sponsored student panel. Again, please remember to turn off your phones and keep your masks on in the auditorium. We have come together today to share our own experiences and reflect on the diverse and intersectional ways we celebrate our gender identities for Women's History Month. Panelists, let's take it away with your name, grade, pronouns, and how you identify in terms of your gender or gender identity. You guys can just start at the end. And, yeah.
My name is Abby Pedicero. I'm a junior. I use she, her pronouns, and I identify as a woman.
My name is Daphne Wanguzi. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I'm a straight woman. I'm a senior.
Hi, my name is Rhiannon Esposito. I'm in 9th grade. I use she, they pronouns, and I identify as queer and gender nonconforming.
I'm Maddie. I'm a senior. I use she, her pronouns, and I identify as a woman.
I'm Uche Okonkwo. I'm a senior, and I use she, her pronouns, and I identify as a woman.
Hey everyone, I'm Rebecca Yao. I'm a senior. I use she, her pronouns, and I identify as a woman.
Hi, I'm Ashlyn. I'm a senior. I use she, her pronouns, and I identify as a woman.
Hi everybody, I'm Sophia Murphy. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a junior and I identify as a woman.
Hi, I'm Tiana. I use she, her pronouns and I identify as a woman. Hi, I'm Olivia. I'm a senior. I use she, her pronouns, and I identify as a woman.
Okay, great. Let's get started with the first question. What does your gender or gender identity mean to you?
Okay, so I also identify as Asian American, so like that has come like second to being, or like being female and being a woman has come like second almost, because being Asian American and like my racial identity has just been like, I guess like more noticeable and more important, because like that is a minority at North, while like, you know, it's like probably 50% female at North. So that's my answer, I guess, to start it off.
I can go next. I think being gender nonconforming for me means that I do my best not to like conform to the binary boxes and stereotypes that have been placed on me as a person raised female, and it like also means that I embrace my masculine and feminine sides.
I say being a woman means a lot to me. I really do love like the community of like being a girl and like the whole experience. Like sometimes it's hell, but I think that it's fun just being able to connect with other girls like for no reason and like looking out for each other. It's kind of like a sisterhood between all women, especially like black women together.
I would definitely agree with the community aspect. I feel like when I was younger and I just told myself like this isn't something super important, but then as I've grown older and like been involved with more clubs centering women, it's been like a great experience and I've just met so many cool people.
Okay, we're all set with that question. What has it been like for you to have grown into your womanhood and or gender?
Kind of a bit of a struggle. Like middle school, I feel like everybody, you know, middle school was rough for, but I guess like being an early bloomer also made it really hard because people tend to sexualize like young girls, especially like young black girls, a lot. So I kind of went through a bit of that growing into my womanhood.
I agree with Uche a lot. Like going through puberty like earlier than like other people. Like being sexualized was like a really big thing within my girlhood when I was younger as well, and also just like having pressures of like being very feminine or like not looking a certain way or not dressing a certain way in public has been like really hard, and just like breaking, not like taking that pressure and like conforming to those like normal things that people think you should do, and just trying to like do whatever you want to do.
I kind of had like sort of the opposite experience a little bit, where I had a lot of internalized misogyny growing up, and I found myself rejecting like maybe this more stereotypically feminine things. Like I hated the color pink and I didn't want to associate with anything that was like stereotypically girly. And so I think like connecting more to my womanhood and like appreciating those aspects of me was really important.
I agree a lot with you, Abby, because I was raised in kind of a predominantly male environment with all boy cousins and 2 older brothers. And I think as I was growing up, I was like, so what does it mean to be a woman who was raised kind of like as well with boys and how boys act? And it was very confusing at times, like at recess in elementary school when like all the boys would be playing football and like the girls would not, and I'd just be confused because I wanted to associate as a girl, but I didn't want to like put aside what I didn't like because of my identity. So I think I was confused at times.
I like definitely like agree with everything that was said. I also have 2 much older brothers, so I remember when I was younger, I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna wear pink. Just gonna wear my brother's old clothes, thinking like that was the only way to be a feminist, kind of, to reject the feminine parts. So I think like learning how to appreciate the feminine parts of myself, but also like appreciating all the aspects that make me a woman, because there's not just one thing.
So I grew up kind of like tomboyish. I also had brothers only, mostly around me. So like in middle school, like I didn't go to school in Newton, but in middle school I was like very much a tomboy. Like I dressed like one. I was always like wanting to play football at recess. And I feel like as I grew older, I wanted to like, I'm still more of a tomboy, but I feel like now I just like want to be like both. Like I am very girly, like I love dresses, and yeah, I just kind of grew up to like both sides of me.
I feel like for me, I never really felt pressured to like present myself in a certain way because I grew up in a very, there's a lot of women in my family, barely any men. I don't know how that happened, but I mostly like, I've always stayed true to like what I like to do. Like I never felt like, oh, I can't do this because I'm a girl, but like I have to do this because like that's what girls like to do. And I feel like sometimes in some of the spaces that I've been in, that's been something that's like, I don't know, like some people don't really understand it in this kind of way. Like I really like to do whatever I like to do. Like sometimes if that means like I'm in a space where there's a lot of boys because it's something I like to do, like I'm completely fine with that. And I'm very comfortable in my womanhood, I guess.
I feel like there's a really black and white perspective when people think of like what it means to be a woman, and I think one of the things that I've definitely had to learn and had to talk to myself about is like that it's okay to embrace both sides of you. And I think being a person raised female in this society, something that got really ingrained in my mind was there's only one way to present yourself as a woman. And growing up and just discovering my identity and who I am, I think I've been able to come more to terms with embracing my masculine side, and I think that's been really beneficial for my mental health and just my happiness as a whole.
Great responses, everyone. Now, how have gender norms and roles affected how you identify and present yourself? So you can consider things like family, school, social media, and other societal influences.
I can just speak. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like around like middle school, when I get social media in middle school, I feel like I was always the type of person that'd be like, oh, I don't really see how, because they would always say like social media will have an effect on you like just mentally, and I was just like, I can go on Instagram and not feel like I hate myself. But I feel like over time I kind of saw how like looking at certain celebrities would make me feel a certain way about how I present myself. Like I like what I'm wearing is what I like to wear all the time. I like to be comfortable, but then sometimes I realized it was so weird how like seeing how girls would post like a lot of times like wearing like heels and like a dress out, and like I don't like to do that. Like it's not like, oh, because I don't like dressing up or anything like that. Like if I'll dress up, I like to dress up and like do that to myself. But sometimes seeing how like they'll present themselves on social media and how I present myself just day to day would make me feel like, should I act more like a different type of way? And like I feel like sometimes it's so weird. I feel like my voice is like a deeper feminine voice, and that was something that I like felt uncomfortable about. So since obviously I like hear myself in my own head, so I don't know what I sound like to other people. Like I used to try and talk differently, which is so weird. That's so bad. But like it was something that I don't know if I was insecure about, but like I used to say like, oh, a lot of people hate hearing themselves back on recording, but I used to like hate it. Like I can't watch a video of myself, like that whole thing. And then like Beyonce has a deeper sounding voice and like other women. So it was just like, if that's what I sound like to other people, it doesn't have to necessarily be like a bad thing.
I think I've thought about gender norms a lot in terms of sports because I do track, and I think on social media especially, or just like in the realm of sports, there's pressure for your body to look a certain way. So I think like that's been hard, and it's something like maybe I didn't think about as much in middle school, but then as you get older, it's just a lot more pressure to look one certain way, especially for something like track where it's a lot based off fitness and stuff like that.
Kind of going the opposite way that Ashlyn explained. Growing up, I always felt like I had a pretty high voice, and so sometimes I would try to lower it, and I felt like I needed to like speak assertively and have like a lower register in order to be taken seriously. And I tried to like not giggle, like I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of a giggly person. So I tried to like be more serious in situations that I wanted to be taken seriously growing up. And I feel like I've had to grapple with like accepting like what my voice sounds like and like the way I am as like deserving of like respect and attention, even in like serious environments.
I guess like for me, what has impacted me like more recently, like earlier in high school, sort of in middle school, was just like beauty standards. I feel like on social media you see a lot of people, not just celebrities but like your classmates, and I feel like as an Asian American woman, like I didn't really fit American beauty standards, but then I didn't fit Asian beauty standards, so it was like kind of hard for me to just like be okay with what I look like and myself, and like obviously, you know, still struggle with that, but it's like getting better. And I feel like that's just part of it, like social media, family too. Like this is like small and it doesn't like impact me that much, but like I used to go back to my family and like visit my family in China, and like my grandparents would be like, you're so tall, like you have to be shorter or else you won't be able to find a boyfriend. I was like, okay, I don't know. They said something like that, and I was like, okay then, like I don't know what I'm supposed to say to that. I mean, obviously that didn't impact me that much, but I feel like just like those specific like standards for what you're supposed to look like, what you have to look like in order to like be successful, that sort of thing.
For me, I feel like I grew up in a very like English. The misogyny in my household, it was more like women should be cleaning, like the man is the one who has the word. And I feel like a lot in like the Hispanic community, like a lot of machismo within men is like a really big thing, which is like men always have the word, like men have like all the power within like a household or the relationship. And so I feel like that has affected me in ways like sometimes I see myself cleaning up after people I shouldn't be cleaning up after. Or I see myself like at my friend's house like, oh yeah, no, I should do your dishes, even though there's somebody else that like could also do the dishes. Like it doesn't have to be me, like in that type of way. And also just like, I don't feel like I present myself as like always listening to a man, I guess, but like just like there's, I don't know. And I've always been like, when I was little, like, oh, if there's like a room full of men, like you have to be like fully clothed, like you shouldn't be in your PJs or something. Or like if I'm home and like if I'm wearing like some shorts and a tank top, my mom will tell me to like go change, like men are coming home. And like I feel like that has made me present in ways like to not really trust men as much, like especially if I'm dressed a certain way, because like you can't control men's eyes or whatever the heck that is, some BS. But like I feel like that hasn't made me present like dress differently, but just like it's made me think like, oh, there's people in my house, maybe I should change my clothes or something like that.
Like relating to Tiana, I grew up in like an African household, and like it was like really stressed that women have to cook and clean and like, you know, stay home, babysit. But like when my mom like grew up, like in her marriage, she was like always like the worker, like she was a provider. And I feel like that kind of changed because like it's known like traditionally that like men are like the workers, the providers of the family. And she really taught me that well, that a woman always have to have money. But I also feel like what like men are starting to become more playing like both parts. They can cook, they can stay home and babysit, they can like do other things, but I feel like that these are things that should be like shared between both genders and not just women doing it.
Going off of what Daphne said, I also grew up in an African household, but I guess a more like modern one because my mom did grow up in the U.S., but she did have some like internalized misogyny coming here. She would say things like, oh, like you need to learn how to cook, or like what if it's like your husband's favorite food? Like you need to learn how to cook it. But I'm like, he can cook it himself if it's truly his favorite. But like, just going off of that, like learning and growing up knowing that like this idea of like that women are supposed to serve men, and seeing that like change and shift, and even my mom like shifting out of that mentality herself has been an experience.
Okay, quick reminder before we move on to the next question. Make sure that your mic is nice and close to you so we can catch everything that you're saying. How have stereotypes about what it means to be a woman affected you? If you can think of an example of a gender stereotype that's been ingrained in you and how it has changed or affected the way you present yourself, feel free to share.
I can start on this. So I am half white, half Asian, and I'm a woman. And I feel like the stereotypes revolving around Asian women is that they're like, bless you, is that they're like fragile, or they're like quaint, and they have to be like very small, very like dainty. And I feel like my entire life I've been trying to like compensate for that stereotype, and I have to like assert myself in situations more than I necessarily would have to, or like speak up more often, or be more like, I don't know if fierce is the right word to use, but like more dominant in some situations, just to show that like I don't want to be that stereotype, when it's okay to be dainty at times, and it's okay to be like strong. But I think just accepting that you can be both and that you don't have to prove anybody is something that I've been dealing with lately.
Just to add on to that, I'm also an Asian American woman, and I've definitely experienced a very similar experience. Like just trying to reject that stereotype. And I feel like that's been so much like of my middle school and like beginning of high school life, is just like trying to be different from what the stereotype is, and like literally being the exact opposite. Like, I don't know, like, and then it's kind of hard in the sense that like when I'm in situations, like because like I am interested in like tech business types of things, like when I'm in those situations and I want to like speak up, I do, but then I like feel so much, I don't know what the word, like I just doubt myself so much, because I'm like, okay, well, I want to prove that that I'm actually knowledgeable in this and that I know what I'm talking about. But then it's like, okay, now what if people are judging me, or like, I feel like, no, I shouldn't like talk over this person, because like I need to show that like I'm polite and stuff. And so it's just like a lot of trying to be like different from the stereotype, but also like, I don't know. It's hard to, yeah, okay.
So the stereotype about, I identify as a black woman, and the stereotype about black women is completely different. And basically just that black women are aggressive, they have an attitude, we're very much masculinized. And I feel like for me, I feel like I used to not really be outspoken. Like I was more of an observer, I'll say that. Like I used to observe situations and like think about it before like I would say anything. And now I feel like that I've come into myself more as I've grown up, that I will speak on things that I feel like need to be spoke on. And I feel like sometimes I find myself in situations where I'll be speaking on something that I'm very like passionate about, or I feel very strong emotions about something, and like people will see that as like that I'm being aggressive and like that I'm trying to cause a problem where there is none. And I feel like it's made me feel like I know I want to stay true to myself in terms of like sticking up for what I believe in and whatever the case may be, but also just like I find myself sometimes like using like the way that I have to like, what's the word? Like I don't know if it's like minimize myself, but like I need to like take it down like 12 notches, and like the way I am very like specific about the words that I choose to use, and like the way that I'm using my hands, and like I really have to be 10 times more observant of how I'm acting, because I don't want to perpetuate that stereotype, even though in some situations I have the complete right to be upset and like feel whatever the way I feel, but like I don't want to come off that way. So I feel like I have to like calm myself down in situations where I shouldn't have to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely feel that, the angry black woman stereotype. And as a black girl who is loud and like has an attitude at times and is very opinionated. I feel like I haven't really, like in the past few years, I really haven't tried to minimize myself, but I have been in situations where I've like been expressing myself and people will like, especially men will like tell me to calm down or like mock like my hand movements and stuff. And like that just like really pisses me off because it's like, especially when I have every right to be upset, it's like already from the jump that because I'm a black woman and because I'm being loud and being expressive, that my feelings don't matter. So yeah.
I feel like for me as like, I guess a girl who like develops early, like puberty wise, I was like, as I said before, like I was always really sexualized as a young person. And like in middle school, or like even in the 5th grade, like a lot of boys or other men would perceive me being very sexually advanced in ways like was not even on my mind at the time. Like I was thinking about how to do 2 + 2, not like other things. And I just feel like many times, like a lot of people perceive me to be like just like a very sexual person while I don't perceive myself as that. And like there hasn't been a way like I've tried to stop that. Like I feel like once I start talking to you, like I'm not going to talk to you about this on the third. I'm probably going to talk to you about like a regular conversation. And also like bringing up what Ashlyn and Uche said, like I hate it. Many times I've been told, like just because I'm raising my voice, that, oh, why are you so mad? Or why are you being so aggressive? Why are you yelling at me? Maybe I'm just passionate. Like I'm telling you about my day and you're assuming that I'm mad. That's just so like, it's such a tiring thing to hear, that like a girl can't raise her voice 2 notches to say a simple thing. But like when men are yelling, oh no, he's not mad. He's just happy for the game. That's so stupid to me.
To reiterate what a lot of people have said so far, I also agree that like women are often expected to be quiet or obedient, and if they do get upset at something that deserves to be upset at, they're often called like emotional or dramatic. Women are called passionate or I don't know, strong. So I feel like that also like has intersects with being a woman of color, being like able or empowered to call things out that are sexist or racist or xenophobic or all 3. You're often met with like, it's just a joke, or don't be dramatic. Try to hold the mic better. And it's frustrating because then after a while, women start to be discouraged from calling things out that need to be called out because of the pattern of being invalidated because of gender or race or both.
I think, like, adding on to what everyone has said, I feel like for me, I've been told a lot in my life to be more gentle when I speak and have a lower tone of voice, or like adjust my tone of voice and watch my attitude. And I think like I have noticed a lot of men are not told the same thing. And I think that's really, especially because I like to advocate for a lot of things, and including myself, and I want to make sure I am treated equal. I tend to have more of a passionate side and determined to like be met with the same like equality that that qualities from the men aren't like deterred. Like I don't hear men being told to be gentle. And so I think that has definitely had an impact on like how I communicate my advocacy and my passion for topics around social justice and around my rights as a young queer person. And yeah, that's definitely had an impact on me.
I think there is definitely a stereotype about like women in school, and I have always felt really empowered in school just because like how my parents brought me up. So I thought maybe like I wouldn't have to deal with the effects of that. But this year I'm in math class. I'm like one of 5 girls, and it's not that I feel like I'm lesser than or don't have the same ability, but I do notice when I speak up, I feel like I have to get it right, or if I'm like proving something to be true, even though maybe I just like didn't understand the problem. So even though like I know that I am more capable, it's still hard not to feel a certain way under the male gaze, kind of.
Okay, great. I know a lot of people. Oh,
Was someone saying?
Say like one more thing. Like I think like a gender norm of like your clothing and the clothing that you wear has also really impacted me, because I think there in this stereotype there's like two sides. Because I think if you're like too revealing, whatever that means, then you are like portrayed as a slut, and if you're not revealing enough, also like whatever that means, you are being lazy or you're not happy in your body. And like both of those things are really deterring as a person who's raised female, because all I want to do is like wear the clothes that I want to wear, and like having to keep in mind what other people will say about the clothes that I wear if I'm like being too masculine or not being like feminine enough. There's that like for me there's a lot of internalized misogyny that I've developed over the years from just hearing that over and over and over again. And I think like that like just appearance it's a really hard thing. There's no way to please the people that are like perpetuating that stereotype.
Great comments, everyone. This is something that a lot of you have already touched on, but I'm just going to leave this space open for more conversation. How have the intersections of your racial and gender identities affected you? This is something a lot of you guys touched on, but again, if you feel like adding anything.
I feel like we were just talking about this before the panel, actually, because we're discussing like what our answers would be. And I feel like in like the dating scheme for women of color, it's so hard. Not that like I've ever dated anyone, but I'm just saying like I feel like it would be hard because like there's just so many I'm sorry. Like I feel like a lot of men like have not men, just like there are a lot of fetishes, and like there's like yellow fever, and that is horrifying to think about. Oh sure. It's basically like I don't know, like if a man like wants to date or get with like a woman who's Asian, and like the stereotypes that go with being Asian, like being submissive or like doing things that the man wants to do, that type of thing. That really freaks me out, but that is one thing that like worries me, I guess. And like, yeah, someone could add on.
I'll add on. I think also like for Black women, I didn't know we were gonna talk about dating, but I mean something that has become very fetishized on social media is like the idea of having a mixed baby. And we're the only people, well, now we're not the only people that can do that, but like Black women are like one of the only women that can have a baby of the whole spectrum. So just like it's so weird. Like there are people that are like really like it's real. People are really seeking out women of color just so that their baby will look a certain way. And if you don't see the problem with that, I don't know what to tell you. Like they just want the baby to look like, I want your skin to be like light caramel brown and your eyes to be green and your hair just not too curly but just the right coil, like, and it's just because you want it's gross. It's really gross. And I feel like people, it's just weird. And I feel like even with like a lot of interracial couples are now like seen nowadays, and just like I feel like I was just reading a book about it in English, like it happened in the book where like this sometimes Black women can like, you can explain it, you read the book too, like how she was like with the white man and how she submitted to him because like
the power dynamic.
He saw past her blackness, and just like those power dynamics in those type of interracial relationships is something that like I feel like needs to be talked about more, especially with like white men and a woman of color. It can get messy.
I guess going off of that, like dating at a PWI can be embarrassing at times because it's mainly white people. So if you date a white person, like the reaction that people have around you and like the fetishization that people point out, like if you're in a interracial relationship, they'll bring up like mixed babies and weird shit like that. And like just the idea of like how black women are perceived and how we're like the most fetishized and the most disrespected. Like if you look at trends like BBLs and lip fillers and all of that, like a lot of that are features that black women like naturally can have. Other races can also have these features, but it's like common in black women as well. So seeing all of that go on and then watching black women be disrespected on like social media and like at school and like hearing people say like I would never date a black woman and stuff like that is really detrimental.
This is kind of going back to the point that Maddie made about like math class, because I am a woman in STEM, and it's very discouraging because, you know, as Maddie said before, there's like barely any girls in my classes, and then also I am Asian American, so the model minority myth definitely plays a part in that, because there's the expectation that I have to like succeed, but then I see like how few girls there are, and it's like so discouraging and frustrating because there's like these two different parts of me that are like telling me different things, and it's hard.
Yeah, so when Rebecca was speaking, it kind of reminded me, and we were talking about like mixed babies and all the fetishizing. Yeah. And I think this relates to me very personally. Like when I was in middle school, beauty standards used to get to me a lot because I was Asian, but I was white, and I was always confused because I would see these like beautiful like Asian women, and I'd be like, oh, I don't look like that. And then I'd see these like white women and like the beauty standards of like the eyelids and the like lips and the noses, and I was like, oh, I don't look like that either. And it was really hard to accept that like you don't have to look like a model to be pretty, and you don't have to like, it was just very difficult because I wasn't necessarily in a beauty standard, and it was discouraging for me. But I've grown to love my features, and I think being on a panel like this and seeing that we're all beautiful but we all look very different is very inspiring to be on.
You all are very beautiful.
Also, to add on to Sophia's comment, being mixed, white and darker skin Mexican, it feels really weird to be told like how exotic you look, or like what are you, or where do you really come from. Things like that don't make me feel super human or respected. Even if people say it and then they go, oh, that was a compliment, it feels more like I'm like a spice or some interesting fruit. But like I wish people just like got to know me before like asking that question, because a lot of times I feel like people see me and then that's the question that they think, like what, why, and it's weird to think that that's like people's number one priority and getting to know me. And I think that intersects between being a woman and being a woman of color, because I think people have more audacity when talking to women a lot of times.
Going off of Abby, I am also a woman in business, so like black woman in business, nobody else is there, so it's really hard at times to be in like business like spaces or like finance spaces or do like stocks and have everything you say like second guessed because they don't think you're capable of understanding.
Like for me, like throughout middle school, I always felt like I had to wear baggy clothes or like cover up or like not like show my my back. It was really hard doing that because I couldn't even wear like skinny jeans. I wore uniforms, but like mostly the khakis that like more like most girls wore were like skinny. And I feel like I couldn't do that because I actually got called like a really bad name. I can't say it, but that really like broke me down and made me feel like insecure. I'm African, so like I have those features, but like I'm trying to learn how to accept them and like know that I have that. And some people hope they did, but they don't. But yeah, and like right now I'm trying to become like wearing like more showy clothes, I guess.
And I just wanted to also add on to the STEM piece, because I've been in like the accelerated track and honors track, and now I'm in the AP for my math class. And just like seeing as I've gone through the years of how I've become like I think right now in my class, I'm sorry if you're in my math class and I missed you, but I think I'm the only full black girl in my class right now, and I can't even express to you how uncomfortable I feel in that room. Like every single day, and especially this year, like honestly, I've been kind of struggling in that class, and I feel like that's also played a big role as to why I feel so uncomfortable in that space of just being like, I don't know. I feel like it's internalized at this point because it's been so many years, but just like how I feel like everybody just assumes I have no idea what I'm doing. And right now I don't know what I'm doing, and that's okay because I don't know, it's hard for me, but it's just like, just feeling like I have to, and especially like if you've known me my whole life, you know, school's like I've been on top of my stuff, and this year I kind of fell off. I'm struggling. But just like trying to prove that like I belong in this space, even though like it's hard to prove something that you don't believe yourself, because it's like I don't even know what I'm doing, so I shouldn't be in this room. But then feeling like everyone else also thinks that is very hard to navigate. And given that I do want to kind of go into a profession where it does still involve math, it's gonna get probably worse, and I will probably end up being at some point the only woman in a lot of spaces, and it's hard, and it's probably gonna get harder, but just navigating that.
Okay, great responses, everyone. Again, what has helped you feel really supported at North in terms of your gender identity or womanhood? You can also comment on ways you felt there's a lack of support if you feel comfortable.
I want to say Lost and Found was really great, directed by Olivia and Abby. Woo! It was like my first theater production doing at North, and it was like, obviously it's like a thing for people of color, but I feel like as there was a lot more women within the production, I feel like these two great directors plus Ben, who isn't here, did like a really good job in like just like uplifting each other. And I feel like all the women, like whenever we were like in the dressing room getting ready, or like we were all nervous, like we all really kept our spirits up and all like really supported each other in that way. And I feel like just being in certain spaces where like everyone is a girl's girl, basically, I guess is a saying, like is going to support you. Like I feel like at North, there's a lot of girl on girl hate, or like a lot of girls spread other rumors about others. But I feel like you can also find a lot of spaces like Lost and Found where like literally every other female that's in the room is there to support you, no matter like if you can't hit a high note or anything.
I also agree. Lost and Found was great. Thanks for directing, guys. And also just like for being a black woman, like in BLAC, when we've had our hair panel, that was everyone identified as a girl at that panel. And last year we also had a black feminism panel. And I feel like more recently, in like these past like couple years of high school, I've really felt like it's just great to be a girl these days or something. I don't know what it is. It's just like I feel like a lot of people, maybe it's because we're all kind of maturing as we're like leaving, and just like all more comfortable in our like femininity and our identities and stuff, and just like being there for each other instead of like, because I feel like I've never really been in that type of drama, but like Tiana said, I've heard a lot about it, and it's just like we've created this, like I feel very comfortable with like going up to a lot of girls in my grade and just like talking about whatever it is that I'm going through at the time, and feeling like I'm not gonna get a rumor spread about me or like any type of negative things going around. I just feel like in past years maybe not so much, but now I feel like a lot of support, and I appreciate that.
It'll take a second to phase in.
Okay. For me, I think just like finding those role models is really important. So like I mentioned before, I do track, and prior to this year we had no female coaches, but then in the fall there was a female cross country coach who like continued on to this season. And Joe? Oh yeah. But in like in the distance running part. And for me, that was just so nice because she could really understand like the beauty, like the beauty standard struggles and just having someone to go to if you were like having a bad day or worried about something specific that maybe like you wouldn't want to go to another coach with.
I think also for me, like just having like a panel like this has made me feel like really supported and heard, because I don't know, I feel like coming into North as a ninth grader, like I didn't really know like where to go to just like rant or vent about like struggles I was having as a person raised female. And so like this is just a place where I know I can be vulnerable and I know I won't be judged, or like people won't spread rumors, or people won't, it's like confidential. And also like it's just nice to get my thoughts out in the open, because I feel like on a day-to-day basis I like have a harder time finding spaces where I can do that. So like this has been really nice.
Low-key, this isn't even about North that much, but I feel like the like woman in STEM like community is really great. I think at times it is also very stressful because you feel like you're competing against each other, because like there like are limited spots in certain places, and like, you know, like not like affirmative action, but like, you know, there are limited spots for a minority in a certain field, because like people think like, you know, they're like under, like they have less skill and stuff like that. But I feel like, I feel like just like usually it's super supportive. And like my comp sci class last year, I basically did like half my homework assignments, but it was really like, it was like 5 girls, and like Rose was in it. I just talked to Rose the whole time, and like it was just hard because it was also on Zoom, but like I knew I had support from the other woman in the class. It just like in general, the STEM community is somewhat toxic. So like being a woman, or like, you know, like marginalized genders, like there are like opportunities out there. That's why like I worked on like gender focused hackathons, because like that community was just so vital to like my growth as a woman. So yeah.
This is kind of like a lost and found plug, but just having like safe spaces like this panel, like Rhiannon said before, has just been like, it's forced myself to think about my identity as a woman, because like lost and found, you're surrounded by so many people of color, and it forces you to like think about your racial identity and how that affects you in your everyday life. And like, so panels like these and just like safe spaces created at the school are just so important, and it helps you and it forces you to realize like your gender identity has so much value and importance and significance.
A safe space in the school, I would say, is probably like the cheer team, which is like kind of funny to say, because I feel like people would think the cheer team would be like really catty and like very stereotypically feminine and stuff. So like finding friends on the cheer team and like connecting through there, and then also the track team, because these are like all feminine teams, like the girls track team and stuff. So, you know, having that, an outlet of girls to talk to, kind of like what Ashlyn said, just talking about anything together, just because like we do the same sport and we know each other and we're both girls, like this kind of sisterhood and connection I was talking about earlier, just like between across the board.
I agree with you there. I love when I'm on my all-female sports teams, because it's a shared interest and it's a break from the males at times when you need to just get a break from them. But I think sometimes at North, what I've struggled with was on track last year. We weren't allowed to run in sports bras, and I was extremely mad about that, because it was an 80-degree day and I had a black t-shirt on, so I took my shirt off and I got reprimanded. And that was something that was very unreasonable, because boys are running shirtless all the time in 50-degree weather, and I don't understand why things like that don't impact anybody else's life in any way need to be spoken out about. So I think in the athletic community, there needs to be a lot of work done just by being on sports teams in the past, having less fans show up to girls' games, or less like Instagram posts made about girls' sports teams. It can be extremely demeaning, and it kind of shows you like, oh, we don't care about you that much, but you should keep trying. And it's hard to keep trying when you don't have the support of your school behind you.
To say also a lot of what other people in Lost and Found have already said, I think spaces where like one part of your identity feels like good and supported, like racial identity, it's easier to like combat the hardships or adversities of other parts of your identity, like your gender and other things. So yeah, just spaces like HLU and affinity spaces where you feel
BLAC.
supported. Yeah, BLAC as well, and AACC and SASA and GALS. They're really special, not just for racial identity development, but also just exploring who you are in other ways.
And I also wanted to say a way that I felt supported at school is just by like the teachers that identify as women in the school, like Miss Leong. I love you, Miss Leong. And I think also with having, well, I've had one health teacher that was a man, but like having health teachers, is that Miss Albert over there? Hi, Miss Albert. I loved your class. I think just learning about health from a woman and just like, because in past years, like at Day, we had a male health teacher and just like I felt very uncomfortable in that class. Like in general, just health can be uncomfortable, but I felt so comfortable in that class and just asking whatever and talking about whatever. And just like, I feel a lot of support from the teachers that I've had that have been women, and just like even like I was mentioning in my math classes, like aside from this year, but like I've had female math teachers, and like for me that has been so like helpful for me in terms of like my education, and just I really do appreciate the teachers that are women that really do make themselves available to us and our support system.
To go into the second part of the question, like the lack of support, I feel like throughout elementary school, like we've been taught to like ways to diffuse situations and like ways to like if bullying is happening to like stop it, or just like whatever, like ways to act when like there's like arguments or rumors or whatever. And I feel like a lot of times, well, me personally, I feel like I haven't had a lot of education. I've had to like learn on my own, like ways to like when there's like not catty fights, but when there's like arguments between girls, I feel like it's very different than just like a regular argument, or especially like if it's your best friend who is a girl. Like I feel like a lot of the times there's not really like ways to like figure out and to like hash stuff out, like with a teacher, like learning in like class, like, okay, like if this is happening, like you should do this, or like you should listen to them, or like you should be more understanding. I feel like it's more like generalized, which makes sense, but I feel like when I'm arguing or like having beef basically like with another girl, it's very different than if I'm beefing with like a guy.
Oh, I was just adding on that like the situations, like if they get to the point where they have to go to like a dean or like a teacher gets involved, those situations are handled differently. Not that I've been in like beef with a bunch of people, but like I've seen it firsthand, and like the things, like the way that those situations will be handled, and like the difference in how like the teachers will come to the situation based on like if it's a boy or a girl or however they identify involved, it's very different.
I guess for lack of support, just like the whole thing with sexual assault in the school or sexual harassment, sorry, trigger warning for anybody, how that's dealt with within the school community. I know it's not exactly like the school's fault. It's more like the laws about public school and all that, but there are like quite a few people who have like allegations made against them who like get to go around like for the rest of their days. Well, like if you're in a class with them, the girl or the victim has to switch out of the class. So like you can't even like stay in a class that you wanted to be in if you can't be with that person anymore, like in the room. So like that's really something that needs to be worked on in like Newton North and in like any space where that occurs.
Okay, great. We're going to combine the last two questions because we're a little short on time. They're very different. What fears have you felt because of your gender identity or womanhood? And what's something you really celebrate because of your gender identity or womanhood?
I feel like I can talk about fears. I am so scared in becoming an adult in general, for obvious reasons, like how do you do taxes? But I am also like, I feel like especially in my family, like a lot of the women, whenever they have children, if they choose to have children, they're judged on the fact of like if they choose not to have children, or like judged on how they raise their kids. And it's just like, especially like the grandmas and like the old generation, like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. You're gonna let your kid play in the grass. Oh my God. And I just feel like that's like a fear of mine of just like failing my womanhood in that sense from like my family's like what they want, what they expect me to do if I do choose to have children, especially like making sure to like raise those children maternally, like in a, not in a correct way, because there's not one way to raise children, but just like in a way that I'm not being judged by like half the family who doesn't even live in this country, all up in my business, and also just like just doing well by me and not well by everyone else.
I feel like I also share those fears, but also just like another fear that I have that I feel like a lot of us might be able to relate to is like the safety aspect of being a woman in today. I'm already scared of dark, like outside, like nighttime, and I'm just scared I'm gonna get snatched up or like I'm not a party person, but if I choose like in the future to go to a party and if I'm old enough to, you know, drink a little bit and like if someone might take advantage of me in that sense, because I feel like I'm very aware of myself now, like the way that I move, especially because from a young age I've had to like walk places alone and take public transportation, and like just because I grew up with a single mother, like she can't always come and get you, you need to get to where you need to go. And just like I just am so aware of my surroundings, and like if I have headphones in, there might not be music playing because I need to hear what's going on 360 around me. And just like I don't know if it's necessarily a fear of men, because I don't want to say that I'm scared of men, because like never, but just like of what people might do to take advantage of me and my body, and that's a big fear. And what was the second question?
What's something you celebrate? Very different.
Oh, celebrate.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. I don't know. I just like that I like being a woman. There's so much that I'm able to do, and like I feel like you can say that for everybody, but like I can just from a different type of.
Oh, were you okay? Yeah. I think this isn't necessarily a fear, but something that stems from a fear is like I'm aware of the amount of confidence I have when I walk. So it's kind of sounds odd, but like I'll be walking down a street and I'll like it, especially alone at night. Like I know that I need to present myself like as a person, like kind of like a don't F with me energy. Like otherwise I'm worried I could be perceived as like vulnerable or weak or like harassable. And so like noticing the amount of confidence I have when I walk is something that like that has like I think that's really interesting, and also like something that's really unfortunate, but something that definitely stems from that fear of being harassed or walking alone at night. Yeah, just.
I definitely like agree with the safety portion, but then something I celebrate has definitely like being able to be in certain spaces because I am a woman. Like I lead gals, and I guess just like being able to be in those spaces and have conversations with people from all different grades has been so nice. And like I've loved being able to mentor like younger women in the school, and just kind of climbing the ladder as you get older.
I think I've been very lucky with how I was raised, because my parents and my entire family were always like, you can do anything that a boy can do, and you are no less stronger than like your two older brothers. Like no matter how tall you are, no matter how short I am, or no matter how tall they are, I'm still just as valued and just as strong. And I think that's something that I celebrate about being a woman, is that I don't need to be the same physicality as a man or have the same traits as a man, but I can be just as strong and I can do just as much as they can. And I like that I'm different, but we're also kind of the same. And something that has come with that fear is that like, well, I don't know. I feel like I don't fear too much as a woman just because of how I was raised, as like, you are strong, like you can definitely like beat someone if needed. And I think I've just been very lucky to be given that confidence, and I think it's beautiful that a lot of people can spread that confidence to others.
I just love women. I love being a woman. I think it's so much fun. I feel like that's in and of itself something to celebrate. Just like women in general, like all the things that we can do that I guess men can't. it's really fun to think about. And even being in women spaces, like that's something I guess nobody else really can experience unless you're a woman.
I'd say for me, this doesn't necessarily only have to be like a woman type of thing, but just like within my family and my culture, the connection that like daughters and moms have, like through like getting my hair braided by my mom or getting my hair done, or like the connection like all the women have in my family, I think is very beautiful. Whether it's like through, I guess, like stereotypically like cooking or like braiding hair or getting your hair done together. I really like that, even though like it's a stereotypical thing, I guess, but doesn't mean you have to hate it. Doesn't mean it's always true for everyone. But I just really like the love that like it feels, and it just feels warm and cuddly inside.
Like one fear that I have, like heading to college and like being alone, like living in a dorm, I feel like I have to like protect myself at all times, always have my guard up. Like I'm planning on making like some strong female friends so that we could like always talk about issues together, like regarding women in college. And I feel like I need like this like my desire to like get like a self-defense kit to like help me out, like paper spray or like something that could like scare guys away, because sadly this is what we deal with, and I feel like everybody should be able to feel safe and protect themselves.
I think for something I celebrate, I really love like the theme of this film, like the intersectionality of Women's History Month and just women in general. That's something like really cool that like we're all different on this panel, but we all were raised female, and I think like there's just a unique bond that we can all like that we all share just because of that. I also love that like through my identity and being gender nonconforming, like I'm breaking the gender binary, and I'm like that's not only going to benefit like the generations that come after me, but it's also something that makes me really happy inside. And I think being able to have that dual nature of like advocating for yourself and also advocating for something that's going to help young people in the future is really beautiful, and I love that I am able to do that.
Oh, I was just going to say that this is kind of like a message goodbye, but if you guys want to celebrate women, everybody should check out these posters on Tiger Drive. There are about 21 of them to be exact, and they're all wonderful women, and we're celebrating them for just doing what they've done in history. And it's a really cool thing to check out, and it's very noticeable when you go to Tiger Drive. It's not hard to miss.
Yep, check those out. Thank you everyone for coming in today and celebrating Women's History Month with us. Thank you to all our fantastic panelists. Give them a round of applause. Have a great day, everyone.